I think he has to at least give us a hint of what's to come tomorrow. That's his role. He's the vice president. He's supposed to be the one to make those introductions,
The
maybe
vice
test some things
president,
out,
yeah.
see how the public, reacts to them overnight. And there may be some revisions made for Vice President Harris's speech on tomorrow. But Waltz is going to be who he is, and that's someone who is really about the people. And you hear the word progressive a lot. I don't know if it has the same bad connotation that it had before. To a lot of people, progressive simply means that you want to make sure that everyone is taken care of and treated fairly. And you see that with Waltz. He's obviously a teacher, a coach, and you look at the impact he had on children around him. I mean, my wife is a teacher, and I just understand that dynamic of when you are helping people kind of come into their own, you want to make sure that you take care of them. There are some downsides to that when you talk about it politically, because economically, I don't know how much is sustainable to take care of people forever. So as a teacher, you want to nurture, but at some point you have to kind of let them go on their own and provide for themselves and things like that. But I think ultimately, that's what Tim Walz is. He's a caregiver, and that's going to show in his policies, which it has. He's providing free lunch for everybody in Minnesota and things like that. It's also going to show in his speech when he talks. You're going to hear the sounds of somebody who occupied the lunchroom and who was over the kids in the lunchroom, and that's the kind of person he is, and that's what you're going to see tonight.
And speaking of policy, I just want to draw everybody's attention to the screen right now. It looks like one of the largest copies of Project 2025 on the history on the planet right now. And, Project 2025 has come under some scrutiny from the Democrats. Former President Trump distancing himself from this. Ambassador, I want to get your thoughts as to this. We've heard Jim Clyburn, Congressman from South Carolina, refer to it as Jim Crow 2.0. Talk to us about what's actually in this in terms of policy, and is it ultimately something that the American people should be wary of?
That is a big book, isn't it? But I just wanted to
900 plus pages.
Yeah, 900 plus. I haven't actually read it, but I just, to Tim Walz's, to the point, this is a man who has stolen valor, claimed to be a command sergeant major when he didn't retire as a command sergeant major. He claimed that he had been in combat. He was never in combat. This is a man who claimed on his bio to be a coach. He was an assistant coach. This guy conflates and inflates his resume like I've never seen. If I saw that on a person's resume and learned that they had inflated all of their history, I wouldn't hire that person. I would think they lie on the resume, they're going to lie on the job. I'm not going to hire this person. That's just that point. But Project 2025, I think it actually is something that was written kind of like what Heritage Foundation, which is a wonderful conservative think tank, wrote for President Ronald Reagan. That was their first stab at a project like this. And they wanted to make a roadmap, but I suspect that the roadmap that they were making was for Ron DeSantis, not for Donald Trump, because they had Ron DeSantis speak at their 50th anniversary, not Donald Trump. And so I think it tacks much more conservatively than a President Trump and his administration would tack. I think that President Trump wants to be where the voters of America are. He wants to be president to all Americans, and so his goal is to be right where the voters want him to be and not try to make bans, or he wants people to have free will and free choice under our constitutional freedom.
Actually, on that note, Ambassador, kind of on the flip side of what I was asking Dante, if we look at Trump and Vance, some are saying, both sides when it comes to Harris and Walz. Now Trump and Vance say kind of have picked their lanes. We are still waiting to hear Harris's policy. But how do you see the Trump-Vance ticket feeding into both the moderates and the progressives? Can they get those votes?
Well, so it really depends what people are looking for. Trump-Vance, like tonight, their platform is peace through strength. And that was the great Ronald Reagan's mantra. And that is something that President Trump took very seriously. And he showed the world peace through strength. We saw no new foreign wars. We saw maximum pressure on Iran. He got us out of the Iran nuclear deal. In fact, the mullahs were starved of cash and they stopped funding Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthi rebels. And we saw a lot quieter Middle East. A lot of what President Trump did, Americans liked, especially a peaceful world, a secure border, a great economy. And when you start to talk about Waltz and Harris and where are they going to go, well, her choice of a vice president like Tim Walz means that she's tacking further to the left. She's tacking hard left, I would say, more, and he's a socialist. So yes, it's clear that
yes,
she's
he
tacking
is a
left. So
communist.
we'll see what they say, but I like to watch what people do, and we have a track record with Kamala Harris of almost 3.5 years, and she says she's the last person in the room with President Biden, so I trust that what he does, she has signed off on. I've never heard her say a crossword.
But if we look at that, President Biden is more in the middle. He's more of a president that tried to operate in that gray space in the center, probably more than any president that we've had for a while.
Well,
so
they
if
pushed
Vice
him
President
left.
Harris is going to continue in that line, then she isn't making a hard pivot to the progressive side.
Dante, she demonized half of the American people. She and President Biden demonized half of the American people and citizens. That is not tacking to the middle.
Well, I understand that, and I think part of what politics is right now is there's a lot of demonizing that happens on both sides.
No, I don't agree with you. No, the Republicans want to bring everyone into a healthy,
Hillary Clinton demonized half of the Americans too.
The other side. I challenge you to find demonization from J.D. Vance or from Donald Trump. He actually is trying to unify the American people.
Well, I can meet that challenge easy because both of them have comments and statements that demonize large sides. If we want to talk about J.D. Vance talking about women without children, if we want to talk about Donald Trump saying that people are coming into this country that are rapers, that they rape and
He's a
murderers.
Democrat.
Some of them do rape and murder, yes.
Yes, but you're talking about large
He
groups of
doesn't
people,
talk
and
about
that's
all of them. He actually says some of them are bad people. He doesn't demonize all of the immigrants, but they're all breaking the law.
See,
But I think if we
Democrats
really
try to
want
push the
reach
narrative.
people, we talked about this. We talk about it a lot. How do you bridge the gap? Because we don't want to divide a country. I don't think anybody does. It's not beneficial for anybody.
Obama did,
But
even in his speech last night.
But if we want to bring the country together, part of that has to be acknowledging that there's good and bad on both sides. If anybody takes the stance that we're not doing anything wrong, that's not even possible. So that's not going to help us get to a point where we can say, you know what, there's things we can do better, there's things you can do better. Let's try to meet in the middle and make America better. If we take this stance, Donald Trump never says anything wrong about anybody. One, that doesn't really, it's not rational, and it's not realistic.
Oh, not rational.
Allow people to come together and get better because there's no acknowledgement that there's room for growth. And I think that's important, and we have to focus on that, looking for room to grow so we can be better as a country.
And I think to Dante's
This
point,
guy's a joke.
one former president who did kind of reach across the aisle and get some of those, independent voters is former President Bill Clinton, who is speaking tonight. He appealed to working class voters. He ended up winning Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan by relatively large margins. These are all very important states in this election. So with that said, how significant do you think his speech is tonight that will come just moments away, essentially?
I think Bill Clinton's a political genius. And when he lost a midterm election, he tacked to the middle, unlike Joe Biden, who kept moving further left and into more socialist policies and spending more. Bill Clinton tacked to the middle. He worked with then Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich and actually got a balanced budget. He made a requirement that if you were a healthy person, adult, you had to work to get food stamps. This gave the people that were having to work to get those food stamps respect in themselves. That, when people have a job, they have a purpose in life. And I think it's very, very enabling to do that. And so I thought Bill Clinton, and I think history will prove him to be one of the greatest modern presidents because of his actions.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And Bill Clinton was one that was known, especially with his work with Newt Gingrich, to bring both sides together and look for policy that could move America forward. And both sides could kind of get behind, even if they did not start there. They ended up meeting in the middle, and that's what we want to get back to. I agree 100% that people need to work for a number of reasons. One, you need to be able to support yourself. It does give you a sense of purpose. And also, if you give things away, you have to sustain that. So if you set up these programs
that's
where you're
what
giving people something, you're going to have to
Obama,
continue giving it to them
I mean,
forever,
Biden
essentially.
and
And we
Harris
don't
have
want that
been
to happen.
doing.
But there has to be some kindness in that. And that's one thing that I think, if you look at former President Trump's platform, there are a lot of phenomenal economic policies, but the heart is what's missing. And we need that in politics. We need that for the American people to believe in, to
He's
get
got
behind.
heart.
I think that's equally as important as policy. Treating people kind and letting them know the reason you're doing things. Now, I do believe that the Democrats sometimes treat the party like it's a pity party, right? They try and talk down to people and say, we're going to give you handouts and think that it'd be good enough. I think that's equally as bad. There has to be on both sides, treating people like they know what is needed, that they're capable of providing for themselves, and then giving them a platform to grow.
The Democrats said black people don't
Now,
know how to
preceding
get
Bill Clinton,
IDs.
Tonight in his speech is going to be potentially the next Speaker of the House, depending on how things go this November, and that's Hakeem Jeffries. He's currently the minority leader in the House of Representatives, relatively new since Nancy Pelosi has stepped down from that position. What do you expect to hear from him? Typically on the Hill, he's very partisan and divisive. Do you expect a message of unity tonight?
I do expect a message of unity, and I'll tell you this. Representative Jeffries is from New York. He is a phenomenal, I believe, politician in the way he can get things done.